Well, hey guys, welcome to the studio. We are almost completely torn down here, except for the main desk. I'm probably able to make this video, and I don't know how much more else. I want to show you the state of the studio, some of the tricks that we used, some of the cool 3D rendering that we have in place, including a 3D walkthrough. Let's get to it. As you can see, this is a real mess. And I am limited to just this microphone. So if I walk around and talk, you'll hear me sort of distantly. I'll try to keep my talking down to a minimum. But I want to give you guys like a 3D panorama of what the studio looks like. Yeah. Okay. So this is when I look right, this is what I see. My main desk, this will be the last thing torn down. My video monitors. There's my cool 3D render. We can get deeper into that today. Beyond here, the desks. Oh boy. Yeah, and it's controlled mayhem is what it is. Stuff getting packed up. I have a staging area in the vocal booth. This is for the larger amps and anything that's already packed, packed boxes, plus cardboard that's ready to be used. There's my row of guitars, and you can see they're all backed up in cases back there. The hard shell cases are going to go with the movers. Soft shell cases will be going in my vehicle. What a mess. So that's after about 10 days of work, and what you're not seeing here is the garage. And I will take you right out there so you can see what's going on. So I've got three ways to show you the 3D rendering that we've been working on here. The first is going to be an overhead view. This is 2D. This is where I can do things like, move a piece of furniture like this couch around or turn it wherever I want. It kind of is like a dollhouse. It just allows you to do that. Beyond that, you've seen us use this form of the 3D. This is what you just saw, but this allows me to get in closer, rotate, come back out, and the layout for the studio is going to be this. The clients will arrive over here through this door. They'll have a nice foyer with a wood floor, their own closet here. The stairs will go up to my residence. Then they'll come into a door into the red carpet room. And the red carpet room, it has red carpet right now. I don't know what we're going to do. There's a half bath up here. And this is actually going to be all open, but I'm going to heavily treat this corner here about 3 feet by 4 feet as a vocal area. And I may or may not also run an acoustic piano in this area. I haven't really decided yet. So in the main room, we can see there's a regular piano here. Then I have 2 keyboard stations, a couple of guitar amps. These orange things here, these are half walls, and these are actually bass traps. And I'll talk more about the room treatment in a second. It's pretty insane. Okay, there's eye view from someone who's just come through this door. Wood panel on the floor. Stairs going up to the residence, the red carpet room. This is where I plan to have the microphone. Restroom is here. And this, the reveal, the main studio. Now, I am just using arrow keys like I'm in a video game, but I actually prefer to do this. If I just choose a spot, let's say in front of these amps over here, and click, and pull the mouse towards me, it'll know that's my intention to go there. So as I pull the mouse closer, and I can still move the mouse left or right, and sorry for the joltiness, I don't have my mouse pad on. And I can kind of get a view of everything kind of as I walk through, but it's all based on that point. Let's get closer to the desk. I'll pull this area closer to me. Okay, this is where my main desk is going to be. This is a 6-foot wide desk. It's flanked by two 5-foot desks, and my desk is exactly centered. And I had other designs where the desk was not exactly centered, but I was on the phone with Ethan Winer, who, if you guys watch the channel, you know who Ethan Winer is, ethanwiner.com, the author of the book, The Audio Expert, co-owner at Real Traps, and the guy just absolutely knows everything about acoustics. And he spent more than an hour on the phone with me talking to me about the design and build for this, and I have some interesting stuff to share with you on that front. And then finally we have an extra utility room back here, and as you can see I just have a furnace back here. But down the road, this is 8 feet wide, and I will be able to run another wall off. I'll be able to do a room within a room if necessary, and I'll be able to get real drums put in. It's not something that I'm going to do for the initial build, but that is a plan in the future. And there you have it. That's the build for the new studio. Now, let me talk to you guys about the acoustics. It's easier to see if I show you this in the 2D model because we have a bird's eye view from straight down. Okay, now this is a basement, so the concrete walls were this entire perimeter, plus there's also a concrete wall that runs here. This is part of the existing structure, and it has to do with this area that's on the left-hand side over here, this red carpet area in the foyer. This was an addition that was put on the house later. They actually extended the basement, but the original basement wall is still here. There is a door through it. Okay. The walls I will be building are, let me start you with this one right here. This is going to be 6 inches in from that cement wall, and all it's going to be is framed with 2x4s, 16 inches on center, filled with rock wool, and not sheetrocked with an air gap behind it. In other words, this entire wall is nothing but a trap. Back here, same thing. This entire wall is nothing but a trap. And I know that I'm giving up this corner here, but there is some utility stuff going on in this space I will not have access to. Ethan really pressed me on this. He says, man, if you can get that, even if you had 2 different lengths to the back wall, figuring my mixing position is here, this is all back wall. If I could really get corner traps back in this, that would make a huge difference. We went back and forth. We decided it's impossible. However, we might run one on the higher part of this wall through the entire left to right, the entire width of it, up at the ceiling. And again, the construction for this wall is going to be framed with 2x4s, 16-inch on center, and filled with rock wool, safe and sound. And again, not sheetrocked on either side. So what that means is the sound's going to come out of my speakers. Let's say we're headed towards the back wall. It'll come back here. It'll try to reflect, but it's hitting rock wool. Now, almost none of it's going to reflect right back out. We'll talk about that in a second. Some of it will escape through into this area. When it's in this area, it's going to hit a concrete wall. It's going to bounce back full gangbusters, but then to get back in the room, it has to go back through this same rock wool wall again. That's also true over here on this wall, and it's also true on this wall I will be building on the right-hand side, and you saw back here was where my drum set will be. The sound is going to need to go through this. It'll echo around in here like crazy, but then it's got to get back through. So it gets reduced. It does whatever it does, and then it gets reduced again. All 4 walls, including this front wall, and they're all different dimensions. This one's going to be about 4 inches off the wall. This one's going to be about 8 inches off the wall. This one's going to be about 13 inches off the wall. And this one's going to be about 8 feet from this back wall here. I'm getting the feeling I might double this one up, or instead of using 2x4s, I might use 2x8s and use 2 rows of rock wool on this one back here. as we saw in Ethan Winer's most recent video about the placement of a panel away from a surface. He had cans of cat food that he stacked these panels up 1.5 inches from his floor and measured them, and then 4.5 inches up from his floor, and he measured them. And as he did that, he saw that they were trapping lower and lower frequencies. That's a fairly good sign for me, but there is another kind of bit of the math that plays into it. As they trap lower and lower frequencies, they also get more particular about the frequency that they're trapping. For example, if I'm a 4-inch panel and I'm 4 inches from the wall, that's pretty much ideal. That's pretty much a broadband trap. Bass, mids, treble. As soon as I move it more than 4.5 inches from the wall, and I'm going outside of Ethan Winer's video here, let's say I went a foot from the wall, it will trap lower frequencies, but they'll be particular. And so let's say a normal trap will get down to about maybe 80 hertz. I move it farther from the wall, it'll trap down to 60 hertz, but it'll be very particular to want to trap 60. And it won't trap 80 as well as the broadband absorber. That's why I've chosen varying distances on every single wall in here. Now I know what you're thinking. Dead room. He's building a dead room. And you're right, I am building a dead room, as dead as I can get it. Not to stop sound from leaking out or leaking in. That's what they call STC, if you want to look that up. That's like when we're building apartments next to each other and we don't want sound leaking from room to room. That's STC. I don't care. My wife knows I'm loud. She'll go up to the 3rd floor. It's a nice place we're moving into. She'll be fine. I am only concerned really with trapping really the bass. But what about the reflections of the highs and the mids that are not going to happen essentially with exposed rock wool? And by the way, I will be covering it with either burlap or canvas, so you don't see it. It'll look nice. Well, Ethan recommends something called striping, which I've been looking into. And he mentioned there are types of insulation which are either plain or come with paper on one side, or might come with foil on one side. He likes the paper ones. And he says alternate between paper and uncovered, and paper and uncovered, something he calls striping. And it's actually brilliant. What it does is it allows certain panels to all absorb the bass. They will all absorb bass very, very well. But certain panels will reflect some of the highs back. Well, here's what I've decided to do with his approval. We're going to run a particle board MDF paneling thin, 1/8 inch, on the entire room up to about 32 inches. Now, this is below listening level. It is reflective of highs, but it's thin enough that it'll allow bass to go through it because it doesn't really have that much mass to it. So I'm still trapping bass even in those areas that are now paneled. Well, there's no real reflections at ear level, though. And the trick that he was going to do with the idea of using paper and plain the striping, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use boards, probably 1x4 or 1x6. And what I will do is I will just put them from the 32-inch bottom paneling, the wainscoting, they call that wainscoting, I found out, up to the ceiling. And the boards will be placed every so often, and I'm going to try to find like a quadratic calculator that will allow me to not just completely randomly put them in there, which I might screw up. The goal is actually pretty simple. Kill the room, and then rebuild the reflections up to the point where I like it, as opposed to starting in a highly reflective room and trying to tame reflections down to the point where it works. Kind of an odd approach. Ethan is on board with it, so I will be able to forever say that the acoustics for this studio were based on a consultation with Ethan Winer. Badge of honor for me. He's also available to you guys for a small fee, and acousticians can charge you thousands of dollars. He will talk to you for a consultation for like $200. And he's going to save you that in materials just by designing stuff wisely. If you're actually going to do a room, even with, a fairly modest budget, talk to him first, because it'll come out far more correct. You won't be chasing it down. You won't be guessing. There's nothing like the advice of an expert. I have very high expectations. This is about my 10th studio build. I plan to be thoroughly amazed by this, but I will be testing as I go. As I near completion of the room, I'll be testing and adapting and potentially doing more with bass traps and that type of thing. The idea of striping, the idea of distances, the idea of the actual dimensions, the placement of the desk, the materials that I'm choosing, not only for absorption, but for reflection. Everything that I'm going to be doing in this room, I got to thank Ethan Winer for walking me through the correct way to do this. Hope you guys enjoyed today's presentation on the new studio. I'll tell you, I'm pretty beat up. I got a lot to do. Well, we got a lot to do. Let's get to it.